power prices have doubled in the past 10 years, and that's before we even started to get renewables into the system. Because firstly, they cost tens of billions of dollars to make, and then secondly, unless you have something to back them up, they don't work. There's a reason Australia is different to a small patch of land in Europe. We are the biggest island in the world. We are on our own. It's all good for places like South Australia and the ACT to say we're all renewable, but both have giant extension leads that go into Victoria and New South Wales. So where did your power come from today when there was a gas shortage and bills are going up? Well, I can tell you right now that in New South Wales, 69% came from coal and gas, 30% from renewables. 60% in Victoria, 40% versus renewables. And in Queensland, 87% came from coal and gas, 13% comes from wind, solar and hydro. You heard what the plan is. 85% renewables by 2030. Today, when it's only 30, 40 or 13%, depending on what state that you live in, they're still running out of gas. Now, of course, all of this happens because, as you know, there are gas shortages happening right now. There are fears about greater supply into the future. And why? Because state governments, egged on by some rather curious voices at times in the media, have refused to allow people to go and find new sources of gas. In New South Wales, no need to apply. New South Wales effectively bans offshore mining exploration. In Victoria, push to turn off gas to help reach state's climate goal. Also in Victoria, a parliamentary inquiry suggested people shouldn't even be able to connect to the gas system as a way of disassociating from fossil fuels, and some local councils will not even approve it right now in Victoria. This is a huge issue. It is only going to get bigger. It is only going to get louder. And while the climate wars might be over, the energy supply ones are just starting. Now, I am not a knuckle dragger who believes that we need to live life the way that we did in 1966 and that's it forever. But I'm also a believer in logic. And unless you have a system that can actually replace the one that we currently have, why shut off the one we currently have? Transition, sure. Speed up in order for us to be able to stand at international conferences where all of the delegates, all of the media and all of the big business can pay for the cost of transition is meaningless. Australia, as you know, accounts for just over 1% of the global problem. China is able to replace everything we do in just 16 days. Which brings us to cost of living. An endless mantra for the past few months. Yes, because it was political, but two, because it actually mattered. This was perhaps the chief reason why the government changed 2 weeks ago.
Cost of living.
Cost of living crisis.
Cost of living.
Cost of living crisis.
The cost of living pressures. Cost of living.
Cost of living pressures have been building.
Cost of living.
Cost of living issues.
Cost of living.
Cost of living pressures.
Cost of living.
But to give you an idea, while the problem is as big as it was 2 weeks ago, the media's interest in the issue seems to have changed because, for them, it was overtly political. We did a sweep of the media monitoring services that we have here at Sky News, and the total mentions of cost of living before the election were 97,000. Radio, television and online news articles. This isn't Twitter. That's the mentions on television, radio and the internet. But as you can see, in the 2 weeks after the election, and that was the 2 weeks before, the 2 weeks after, 49,000. So magically, the problem that was just as serious 2 weeks ago gets half the chat 2 weeks later, because many of the people in the media got the political result that they wanted. But let's be really clear. Cost of living is just as bad as it was 2 weeks ago. It will get worse. But magically, the politicians who didn't want to say anything was cyclical, instead it was deeply personal. It was personal that the former Prime Minister, the former Treasurer, your local Liberal MP didn't get it. Well, if you elected a Teal, guess what happens? Cost of living is going to go up. If you voted for the Labor Party, cost of living goes up. If you voted One Nation, Palmer or Nationals or Liberals, cost of living will keep going up. So let's talk about it. Let's maintain the focus that so many And the media, by a margin of 2-1, was talking about before the election versus after, which gives you an idea about what they actually care about your life versus a political equation that they want to achieve. There are 10 different sources right now of huge issue on self-funded retirees and fixed income earners right now. Among them, energy bills. The boss of Coles says that they are under pressure to start passing on prices to the consumer because the people who are their producers, they need to put up prices as well. But don't worry, the new government gets it. The new government says that they will have cost of living relief when they deliver a budget in 18 weeks' time. In 5 months from now, they claim that they will have some sort of a solution to a problem that they claimed for well and truly 5 months before the last election was something they needed to deal with. But of course, they get off the hook. Why? Well, does it surprise you?